Again, another opportunity, another day, another opportunity, and it's AM exclusive time. So my guest today is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He's a man who wears many hats, but he's also a politician. I'm going to drop you some clues, and hopefully you'll be able to guess who my guest is. In terms of his political career, he has acted as Minister of Mines and Energy before. He's been a Minister of Communications, he's been a Minister of Education, and the last ministerial portfolio he held under the John Dramani Mahama administration was Minister of Trade and Industry. Who took over from him? Alan Kojo Chamating. I'm sure you know whom I'm talking about now. But he's also been ambassador to the United States, Ghanaian ambassador to the United States, Ghanaian ambassador to Mexico, and currently, as a leading member of the NDC, he is also the head of business development, the Business Development Committee of the NDC. I'm talking about none other than Spio Garbrah. He joins me for a conversation. Thank you.
Pleasure to join you.
Good to have you. So I would tease you for starters because Ghana is what, 67, and you are in a comfortable lead, as your party members will say. You are ahead of Ghana.
That is true.
Later, we'll get into the picture of where you were born and how significant it will be in election 2024. And why I'm getting there is because he was born in Kumasi in the Ashanti region. And so knowing that it is crucial to the elections, we'll go there. But for starters, when you look at Ghana today, having lived through all of these, even before independence, and seeing it all, and looking at Ghana now, what picture do you see?
Well, I see a picture of a very great country, a country with great potential, a country with a great history, a country with a great future, but a country with a sad presence in terms of what we currently find ourselves in. And depending on which aspect of Ghana you want to look at, if for those who love sports, we find ourselves being beaten by, I think Sudan was the latest one, and people say, is that how low Ghana has fallen?
But you know, technically, Sudan, Libya, and the rest, some of the countries we don't respect, they are footballing nations. If you go back to even Libya, you know, one of the AFCON finals, we played them in Libya in the finals. I mean, sure. They are not
among the top most names when you talk about football in Africa. They're not in the top 10, let's say.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying.
Let's put it
I'm saying that based on where Ghana has been before, has been, you know, Africa Cup of Nations. People don't expect us to produce these kind of results. That's all I'm saying.
But nowadays there are no minnows in football.
It's a symptom of the decline of Ghana.
Right.
One of my favorite subjects in history was the decline of the kingdom of Ghana itself.
Right.
And Edu Boahin used to wrote a very interesting phrase which we memorized in those days, that in spite of its opulence, wealth, and splendor in the 11th century, the empire of Ghana was no more by the 12th century. Right. Then the question always came, account for the decline. So the account for the decline of Ghana was a tip that many of us learned a lot and usually did very well. So Ghana is in decline. Financial decline, bankruptcy for the first time in its history. Cocoa Board can't get international, you know, finance for its funding arrangements. Bank of Ghana declares $50 billion loss. The president himself, you know, goes into an arrangement with God Almighty.
More like
to
50
build
plus,
a cathedral.
50 plus billion CD loss, the Bank of Ghana.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that the height of it all is the president of Ghana quietly goes into prayer with God and gets into an agreement with God. I'll build you a cathedral to honor you for whatever you've done for me. What happened to that? A big hole in the ground.
What's wrong with honoring God?
Well, fantastic. If you honor God using the right means, and God will honor you back. But the means he chose, as we have all learned, was full of bad practices.
Right.
Corruption, money not accountable, a big hole in the ground, 58 million or something, is the evidence of what our president, the leader of our nation, the result of his, I guess, his contract with God. And that tells us that things are not well. The economy is in shambles. Ask any market woman, ask any housewife, ask any of us, any of people in this studio, what are their experiences recently? Every time you go out shopping, the price of anything has increased. So you are running at 25-30% inflation. They are running at budget deficits of huge amounts, national debt that has been a stratosphere, 800 billion cedis of national debt, and there's no end in sight, even though there's some evidence of little, sun rays in the offing, hopefully. But this is the sad story of Ghana. Water bodies, almost completely browned, become coffee color. How do you explain that to other non-Ghanaians, Africans visiting our country, or those I used to work with in the United States or the World Bank, African Development Bank, who are all asking, what's happening in your country? What's happening in your country? So the story is not very good, but I hope it's a temporary story, which is directly related to the current administration. And when the current administration, by God's grace, departs from the leadership of Ghana through the elections that will be held on the 7th of December, we will all breathe a sigh of fresh air. And hopefully the John Mahama administration, which we are all looking forward to, will usher in a new phase of Ghana's redevelopment. And the whole manifesto of NDC is the resetting of the Ghanaian agenda and the Ghanaian economy, the Ghanaian prospects, and the Ghanaian future. Before
I get to other points, yes, you would hear the clamor by quite a number of Ghanaians for change. It's a vicious cycle, maybe not a vicious cycle, it's a cycle we've had for practically every 8-year term. The question, though, is in 2016, it was as though the NDC were the devil and the NPP were an angel, right? At this point in time, it appears the NDC is some sort of angel, and the MPP is some sort of devil, right? You in the NDC may come to power. Only on December 7th will we get to know what the situation really is. But does that mean you have all the answers? You can get it right? The point being that you've been there before.
Correct. And our performance and our record was very stellar compared to the one that we are seeing now.
Yes, but you were talking about galamsey. There was galamsey under the NDC too.
Correct. Not at this level.
Some of your members, it doesn't have to be everybody.
Of course.
It won't be everybody who will be involved, but some of your members were implicated at some point, pointed to as benefiting from the very thing that now has become a hydra-headed problem. So is this not just a circus we keep having, going round and round with both of you parties?
In any economy, you can't have the cup always 100% full or 100% empty. So as you know, with the sun that usually is used, sand, to use for an hourglass, the hourglass is often not 100% empty or 100% full. So no government is a perfect government. Yes, NDC was not a perfect government. And President Mahama will never claim to be perfect. I hope that we won't say that MPP is also a 100% negative government. So there'll be good people in MPP and there'll be many good people in NDC and some bad people in the community. The country is made up of the community. So the country's population is from which we evolve our government. And so the government will reflect either the worst parts of the country, depending on who have the influence in the government that comes into power, or sometimes the best parts of the country in terms of who manages within the party to have the greatest influence.
Has the MPP reflected the worst part of our country?
Oh, very much so. I'm sorry to say that. To the point that even within their party, such eminent people like Alan Kyerematen you just mentioned have to depart from the party for reasons that they know best. But
that's not the first time that Alan Kyerematen is moving away from his party. Would you say that?
So the fact that every now and again he must move from his party reflects that from time to time negative forces come to the fore of his party and he feels like he can't work in this party at all.
So Alan Kyerematen is a pious character? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. It's an example of the challenges we are facing in the political world, and especially in the party he belongs to. That party to which he belongs, and where he serves or has served prominently in the past, and where he actually expected to be the flag bearer, due to whatever circumstances, he actually had to leave the party altogether. Yes, but different parties also have had people leave them. So I'm not saying that all that has happened only in the NPP. I'm just saying there are symptoms of the ailment in that party. And Adoye, Hobson Adoye, who comes out and speaks often on his behalf, actually has a lot to say, he claims, about the evils and the ills of that party. And I'm saying that evil is everywhere. For those of us who are Christians, who believe in God Almighty and in the role of a devil, the devil has mischief for all of us. But some people gravitate towards the devil and do the devil's bidding. And many of us also, with all the temptations that we all face, try hard to avoid being devilish.
Let me ask you this. You also do realize, I'm just focusing on this briefly, you do realize that if your party comes to power in election 2024, ahead of 2025, well, it's always an if until you cross that bridge. You would have your work cut out for you.
Very much so.
If you look at the economy, and the very things, the economic indices, you would look at inflation, you would look at the exchange rate, you would look at the fact that we are under an IMF supported program, and all the dynamics, debt restructuring, the banking sector cleanup, and all its concomitant effects. You would really have your work cut out for you.
Absolutely.
And you also realize that Ghanaians have got to the point where we are not merciful. We are not patient. We don't have the time for anybody to come and make excuses. Are you up to the task? Because Ghanaians will not forgive you if you fail. And we in the media will scourge you if you fail.
And we shouldn't fail. But President Mahama has only 4 years. And knowing that, you've seen that he's put together a very quick plan of action so that within the first 3 months, 120 days, he does a whole lot of things. So he has almost 100 action plans that he needs to take in the first 2 weeks. Even putting a cabinet in place in the first 2 weeks after being sworn in. It's that time to reflect, obviously. It's that time to identify people and their talents and their capabilities. And if he puts the best foot forward in terms of the soccer team. So we've seen Ghana play football matches, and sometimes we can blame the coach, you can blame the football administration, but we all know that Ghana has talented players. Do we, field our best and most talented players or not? So we cannot make mistakes, and he could make mistakes as well. But if he puts the best foot forward of the NDC, and I'm saying that in my judgment, we don't always have to work only with NDC, in my own judgment. Others may think otherwise. There's a lot of talent in Ghana.
Bringing in people from even other political parties.
You can bring in the best and brightest of Ghanaians who can help solve the problem.
Regardless of their political orientation.
The nature of the work that they do. For example, I've proposed the National Debt Commission, which will be a bipartisan commission of people from both political persuasions and people who are not known to have any political persuasion, but who can sit down, look at the debt profile of Ghana, break it down into its integral parts, dismember parts which actually should not be there, because Ghana does not owe all that money that somebody will say we owe, because other countries that have put such debt commissions in place have discovered that 5, 10, 20% of the debt shouldn't be there at all. If you ask any managing director of any organization, any financial controller of any company which has a big debt profile, Cocoa Board, GNPC, or any other company, if you actually look at the debt, the people who claim their own money by that organization, you find that some of the alleged debt should not be there. These are all contracted and constructed, and all the so-called loot share.
So manufactured,
manufactured, there are plenty of it. All these contracts that should not be there. Some of them are at the Flagstaff House or Jubilee House. Things that should not be there. Somebody who owns 34 companies.
Are you saying this based on fact or based on conjecture?
No, not on conjecture. On things that have been shared even on some of your own television programs by people who have unearthed them.
Right. So,
contracts that should not be there.
This then paints the picture
this is part of Ghana's debt profile. Right. So if you do a proper analysis of the debt profile and remove debts that should not be there, you get immediate headroom. You get 5-10% headroom to do other things with fiscal space.
You see, you've said two things.
Among many things.
What you just said. It reminds me of what candidate Akufo-Addo said before he became president.
Possible.
You talk about, oh, and we can do this,
yes,
and then it creates. I'm getting there. And it will have the fiscal space and all of that.
Correct.
Yet it's Sikaso.
Yes.
And so accommodate.
But did he allow the best person?
Yes.
Yeah, the good quotations. Yes. All that is true.
We see where
true,
we are now.
But did he do the right thing?
He said, I am a man in a hurry. You remember, you are telling me that within the first 2 weeks, former President Mahama, if he becomes president again, cabinet and all of that, I'm a man in a hurry.
Correct.
Look at where we are.
No, so I'm saying that,
so
yes.
I don't know.
No, it is possible for people to promise and fail. As many women who were promised all kinds of things by their husbands or lovers and who just turned out to be nasty and wrong decisions. So all these things happen in human life. So yes, it is possible for NDC to promise and not perform as well as we hope to do. But that's why you are here as a media person, to point it out within the first 100 days, 120 days, 700 days. NDC, are you doing what you said you do? We have looked at your manifesto, we have looked at promises. You are not doing them well. So fine, we should be willing to be subjected to the rigors of the population evaluating us. But I'm saying that no evaluation of NDC and President Mahama coming back again after all the lessons he learned before can never be anywhere as bad as the current regime that we have. Now, that
so it is not that the NDC fared well, it is that the MPP has fared worse.
Both.
Or badly.
Both. That NDC fared very well, and we did many things which MPP come. You see, MPP, you must understand the culture and the tradition of the political parties. And now we all know that Kwame Nkrumah was a great leader. Do you know that? Do you think so? Do you believe that?
That Kwame Nkrumah
was a great leader?
I think he's the greatest leader we've had.
Very good. So why was he bastardized so much by the NPP? Because those are the people bastardized him at the time of the United...
the UGCC.
UGCC and
United Gold Coast Convention.
UGC Convention and the United Party. They bastardized the man.
So you mean the UP tradition?
Until recently, even for our children and grandchildren, we don't know that the guy was a very honest man who actually stole nothing, hadn't even taken one cement block that didn't belong to him as his personal property, had no piece of land. One plot of land in Ghana that he owns for his own family and himself was putting property of Ghana into suits that were given to him by foreign leaders to make sure that people know this is not my property. We didn't know all of those things because we had been lied to. And then people had lied many, many times. I'm talking about their grandfathers, not the current regime.
You're talking of the tradition.
The tradition. So that tradition is one that undermines the good leadership of Ghana, makes us hate our own leaders and think they are evil. Why is it that it's Hobson Adoye, for example, of MPP, who came and said he made a mistake? He's the one that associated President Mahama with drinking or something, and that he is willing to apologize for him. Why did Chatawali apparently go and apologize to President Mahama? There are so many people who are willing to apologize and, oh yeah, we're wrong. But they were wrong because...
But you could also say that is political and that people sometimes are blown where the political wind.
Well, I've mentioned people's names.
Where they see there could be opportunity. That could also be the case.
That could be the case. But I think these are people who really have regretted their negative actions. There's a lot of them.
You started talking about the fact that if we got rid of certain elements of corruption,
absolutely,
we would be able to fare better. I mean, you don't need to go far. The finance ministry itself, when Ken Ofori-Atta was Minister of Finance, there were documents that pointed to the fact that every year Ghana lost anywhere between $3 and $4+ billion to corruption. Yes. If you look at data from other sources, it could be as high as $6 billion. How much are we going to the IMF for? Half of that.
Excellent.
How much of a problem is corruption, and what is the solution of your end on the political spectrum in dealing with it? Because both sides have shown to be not strong enough in taming. You've not been able to tame corruption.
No, Ghana as a country has had difficulty taming corruption because too many of our Ghanaians, and all of us, either tolerate it or are part of it in one form or the other. But you see, you can only tell when you actually examine people by their performance and their behavior. So you can tell, for example, from me, you can tell from President Mahama. We both were ministers of communication, your industry. We were responsible for giving out frequencies, TV licenses, telephone licenses, and all that. And we didn't steal any of those licenses or pack it for our friends and family, which some people have done in that ministry and other ministries. So when the wealth of the country is put in your care as a president or as a leader, and the way in which you share the wealth or tolerate people who abuse their wealth, nowhere in the history of NDC, as I remember, did somebody keep millions of dollars and cedis in their house and different currencies. And then the president, when he hears about it, writes a letter to the minister.
Nowhere was it discovered.
No, but when a minister,
say you are not a thief until you are caught.
Yes, but when a minister only talked in her car with her driver that she looking to earn $1 million under NDC under Mahama, what do you happen to that minister?
Vicky Hammer.
Yeah, I'll mention the name, but she was dismissed immediately. So that tells you or told you then the attitude or the mindset of that president. But when another president has obvious and obvious signs of money being badly used, at least it wasn't put in the bank. Just start from that. And the person has not been able to tell where the money came from. So it's going to be a funeral and family. It's not any of that. And then judges also set the persons free in terms of the Office of Special Prosecution, the Prosecutor's Office, trying to do something on behalf of the state to recover that money.
That's how you saw it.
That is the fact of the situation.
Well, the president also says, I believe in the rule of law. I believe in due process. And until
so why did the president write
until you are
letter
in
to the
that
person?
position,
No, so why
you will not appreciate the rule of law. Until maybe you are somewhere and you are in a fix, you've been accused, you may not
no, I understand the rule of law, that you must have the law.
And he says he doesn't deal with these people anyway. There are state institutions.
Yes, but you write a letter, open letter for the whole world to see that dear so and so, by the whole time this investigation is over, you will be cleared and you know that
what he said was your integrity will.
What does that mean? That you have reached judgment already. So if you're a police officer, inspector of police, you're supposed to investigate that crime, or a detective, and you know that such a letter has been written by His Excellency the President to the woman or the man you are supposed to investigate. What are your likely
blunt question?
Behavior?
How do we tame corruption? Seriously, how do we do it?
By enforcing the law. As simple as that. Enforce the law. There are laws against speed driving. There are laws against misbehavior of all kinds. The criminal code is there. Enforce it. If you just enforce the law and you yourself set a good example as a leader in obeying the law, Nkrumah was not found to have, even though he was accused, as I said, of doing many things. Wasn't Mahama accused of having hotels in Dubai and other things by the NPP? Have they provided any evidence of any of that since they came to power? They've had 7 years of packing the courts with all kinds of people, including people who are purely NPP, who stood on NPP party tickets and are now judges. Openly, they don't mind that. The Electoral Commission, you pack them with party sympathizers and radio talk show, performers who declare open support for your party instead of taking neutral people. When we had, the first National Electoral Commissioner under Rawlings, the person was not known to belong to any particular party. And other electoral commissioners have been reasonably neutral. But in this case, there have been a clear and open effort to pack the courts, to pack the Electoral Commission, to pack public institutions with all kinds of party apparatchiks. Go to the civil service and ask people. Go to the Registrar General. Go to the National Ghana Revenue Authority. In almost all these public service institutions, unless you are openly a supporter of the NPP, you either don't get a job or you don't get promoted. It's well known. I talk to public servants all the time. Even diplomats know this openly. I mean, U.S. Embassy officials, British Embassy officials, African Embassy officials.
No, openly that.
They know that public services have become porous, and that politicization of appointments and of at these institutions now, there are now 2 or 3 categories of people. There's the public servants who get salary every month from the government. There's a new category of people who put themselves between you and the public servant as whether they are, you call them guru boys in those days, but they are now consultants. They have offices either in the office of the organization or next to it, and they are the ones you must talk to for anything to get done in the actual civil service offices throughout the whole public service of Ghana. Everywhere you go, I'll mention the names of the commissions, but you know them very well. Whether it's the Forestry Commission, whether it's the Lands Commission, whether it's Social and Social Commission, if you don't talk to any of these people, your job will not get done. So the actual service cost, which the government usually prices very moderately, getting some permits here, 20 cedis, 500 cedis, 700 cedis. These intermediaries come in, you pay 3,000 cedis. Try and get admission into a police service or immigration service or any of these services. Even secondary school admission, unless you pay 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, the rates keep going up. You just can't get admission to these places because the world of population is growing, so the demand and supply issues are also working, and people are taking advantage of it by rent seeking. And all that is going on, that's part of the corruption. But if the people see that the leader, himself or herself, are willing to stay above it, which I said Kwame Nkrumah did, which Rawlings did to as the best of his efforts, and which I believe Mahama also did, then you have a somewhat better society. But you not eradicate corruption entirely. Not in the United States, not in Britain, not in Israel. There will be some elements, but you have to tame the rogue elements in any society.
Right.
The laws are produced for rogue elements to behave themselves.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll all be walking around naked and misbehaving because there are no laws.
I see. Then I guess former President Kufuor was right when he said, corruption had been with us since the days of Adam.
Correct. But the point was that, having admitted that corruption has been with us, the point was for him to do something about it. It's been with us, all right, but yes, do what you can do to tame it.
Let's talk corruption. In fact, let's move from corruption and talk galamsey.
All right.
Right. It's become a serious issue which is a form of, in fact, that was why I said corruption. It's become a problem that is slowly poisoning all of us.
And it's greed that is motivating it.
Now,
greed, excessive greed.
Scientists will tell us that the yams, maybe even cassava, plantain we are eating,
everything,
could all be problematic for us.
Absolutely.
Maybe there could be carcinogenic elements and all of that.
And then when people say that, why don't you declare an state of emergency, what happens?
Right.
What happens to that idea? You and your media people, let's have a state of emergency so that we take remedial actions. You send 100 people into some forest zones to supposedly burn 25 fines or whatever, and that is a 9-day wonder. What is happening with the powers that have been given to the president, if he really wants to exercise it, to protect the national interest, to protect our national patrimony, to protect the flora and fauna of Ghana? I don't see that is happening. He's not utilizing those powers, which he has.
In terms of turbidity, I mean, 4 NTU is what some people will say is safe. In some places, we're over 14,000.
You can kill yourself with that. Drink that water and see. But you see,
slow
death, that's the problem.
The issue,
if this was an aeroplane that had crashed, right, 5,000 people had died, we would notice it immediately. But because this is slow death, 5,000 people may be dying every month, every year in certain regions, but we can't see them.
We see some of it in the number of kidney disease cases and others.
Very good.
My question is, if you look, sometimes I look at how our land has become like sludge.
Correct.
I look at water bodies that are literally dead.
Yes.
Do you think we can do this? Do you seriously? Do you think we can win the war against galamsey?
We can do it, but putting all the hands on deck, starting with the president taking the
Maybe I should rephrase.
Okay.
Do you think we can win the war against galamsey with politicians at the forefront?
We have no choice unless we change the constitution of Ghana to make a priest who is not necessarily better, or to make a carpenter a leader of the country. There's no choice. The constitution is what we have. And the governance structure we've selected is the Western style governance structure of periodic elections, and therefore you need political parties to run those elections. So that we can't go away from that. So the structure is what we have. How do we make the best of that structure? And I'm saying that we have a Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. These are government institutions which will give you hard facts, not emotional. You have BNI, which can investigate anything. If you actually put the right people there, they're not going to send you a fictitious report just to put somebody in trouble. So it is the government institutions that must be clean. The public services must be cleaner. They must be filled with political apparatchiks who are just there to earn some money and to do somebody's bidding. They must do clean work, and that's not what is happening now. So whether it's Forestry Commission, where somebody was sent as a forest commissioner, CEO of the commission, and within a few years, I think had produced over 100 pieces of property at his death. And people say, wow, how can this happen? Or somebody who became a deputy finance minister. I don't know why you're
avoiding names, but you're talking of Sir John.
You know the names, because I don't want to personalize it. I'm talking about the issues. So it's not about people, it's about what they do. Somebody dies as a deputy finance minister and he's alleged to have $35 million. If it's true or not, I don't know. But those are the things that we are all hearing. And I've been a minister in 4 portfolios. I've been in charge of mines and energy. I could have taken 3, 5, 7 gold mines for myself and my family and friends. But that's not what I was taught by my parents and by the Nkrumah regime. I was a young pioneer. And we're the ones who were supposed to come and, be at the forefront of the youth leadership of Ghana and to produce a new Ghanaian. You see, so Nkrumah was trying to put a new Ghanaian in place and trained us as 9, 10-year-old people to have a certain attitude to our country, passion to your country. I mean, nationalism, patriotism, ethics. Those were things we were taught physically in classrooms as young boys. So you come up thinking a different way. So when Rollins identified that in me, as South African Development Bank, he said, look, can you stop that work you're doing and come and help me? I was saying $10,000 a month. Why would they want to come and supposedly help Ghana if I didn't have that Nkrumah's mindset? I came, the salary of a minister was $500 in 1997. I took it and I didn't soil my hands. But it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. It's difficult. And so you must have people that are so minded. And there are people like that. Any leader must look for them. And surround himself with such people and get good advice. You get all kinds of advice. Good, bad,
some of my media colleagues who go on the ground, some will tell you, there are chiefs involved.
Yes, everybody.
Whether it's Forestry Commission, there are some involved. Police, there are some involved.
But district chief executives being given mining licenses.
DCs,
MCs,
among others. And many faceless characters.
2,000 licenses
as
just
well.
A few years.
I've heard the story of a chief, a very prominent chief, and of course I cannot mention his name.
You can't mention the name, right?
Who, some of them are dicey because
it's
not been
your situation.
Out established. But who told people that the politicians who are doing it, you don't mention them, but me on my land, if I am doing galamsey, you want to come and threaten my people.
Okay.
That's a matter for the state to resolve. This galamsey.
But when others go on demonstration just to draw attention to this national crisis and recommend, among other things, that Mr. President, you have the power to impose a state of emergency. And a state of emergency can be imposed regionally, it can be imposed sectorially, it can be imposed so many ways. So it's not about the whole country is shut down. We haven't seen that kind of action.
So you're referencing Democracy Hub and the arrests. Oliver Barker-Vormawor is still, he's been granted bail, but he's still, there are allegations that he's been beaten up, taken to hospital, but not granted medication.
So this is why we are expecting the media to give us the facts of that particular incident. For example, I haven't heard a media expose about what Oliver Barker-Vormawor's family is saying is true or not. That would be good to know.
At this point, it is difficult to establish
the truth or veracity,
because the police also comes out and says
nothing happened to him.
This is not true, and all of that.
All right.
Time will tell when we have access to him. And some of us paid visits to some of them. Twice I went to see Felicity Nelson, among others. So we do our bit.
Very good.
In there. But on the back of the fight against galamsey, the media has not been spared. Recently, my colleague Erastus Asaridonko and some others were literally beaten up.
Yeah, we've heard about that. Have you heard any statements in support of the media freedom on this matter? Because some of you, I know, go on air and talk about media freedoms and the fact that journalists
within the media fraternity, and the multimedia group issued a statement on that.
I'm talking about government of the Ghana.
I know exactly what you're saying, but those are some of the problems, and they affect our press freedom, indices, performance, and
people don't care about that, obviously. But why would anybody give district chief executives, almost all of them, mining licenses? Why? That has happened in the last few years. All under other than supposed community mining licenses, because multinationals are mining our gold, so we should also mine our gold. I mean, free for all. It's a free for all. There's no regulation. There's no proper, attempt to impose any discipline. It's a lawless society. That's what the Akufo-Addo government is overseeing, and that's what some of them benefit from.
Since you're talking about all of this, and lest I forget, what do you think will be Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's legacy? Take the politics out of it.
Well,
as a Ghanaian, what do you think his legacy?
When Akufo-Addo made statements such as the aid Ghana without aid.
Ghana beyond aid.
Ghana beyond aid, I mean, he's made a lot of nice statements. He's a good orator, trained in Britain. So he makes nice, interesting statements. But his own family members, including some lady who was on TV or a video recently, was saying that, look, in the Akufo-Addo family itself, the larger one, they are very disappointed with him. And they themselves get together periodically to chastise themselves or chastise, and they are embarrassed. They themselves are embarrassed when they go out among their colleagues and among their peers. Now, whether that lady's statement is true or false, I can't vouch for it. But I'm saying there's a video that I have seen only yesterday with this lady who probably lives in Ghana, in US or London or somewhere else, saying that in their own family they're embarrassed. The Japadier document, she actually claims to have been the conduit through which a Japadier document went through some people and into the media hands. So people have sat down and planned that we shall capture the state of Ghana, state capture, and milk it for our personal benefit, and make sure that the kingdom that they come from, Japadier, becomes as powerful as supposedly a rival kingdom, which is the Ashanti one. And I'm a friend of both the Asante and the Ochehini, by the way. So I'm only speaking about what is already in the public domain.
Let's move from the politically charged bits for a moment.
Very good.
And talk about a sector you've headed before we come back to Parliament and everything happening there. Education.
Excellent.
Where are we? You've been Minister of Education.
Catastrophic. Before. Only yesterday, this organization actually tries to provide mentorship in mostly secondary schools and universities to students to help them. That's Africa Business Center for Developing Education. We're at Africa House, Asylum Down. And we just tried recently to arrange a program for a certain secondary school. And 1 week to the event, after we've planned it for more than 2 months, we hear that, the schools will be out, and they only got that message on Saturday that they are not going to be on. I said, what kind of situation is that? They said, but are you now getting aware of this? That the entire school system is in complete disarray. They don't know the school year, when they are going in, when they are coming out, when it's fast track, when it's blue track. I mean, look, even parents are not being allowed to organize themselves with teachers. We used to have Parent-Teacher Association, PTA, which was a good sounding board for any headmaster or any group of people to know what is going on in the school, because the parents will tell you the teachers will be there. But this MPP government, for reasons that I understand, because they don't want any group of people to unite and have common purposes that will hurt their programs. So they've dismembered Parent-Teacher Association and created Parents Association. So parents only meet. There are no teachers there. What are they going to learn about? What is happening in their schools? Now, I'm learning from others that even in the school system, there are no term reports at all. There's somebody in a secondary school. She works with me. And she's telling me that in that school, in a very prominent school as well, and I believe it's a practice in almost all the schools, there are no terminal reports for you to know that your son or daughter has performed this way or that way.
Do you have proof of that? Or is it just hearsay?
Well, after this interview, I will introduce you to that person. No, what kind of proof do you want?
It behoves you as well.
As Minister of Education.
To have, if you had seen something, then you can.
I'm telling you, the whole world. I'm sending you an interview for the whole world to hear that there are no terminal reports being proposed in Ghana today. If there are terminal reports, let the Ministry of Education come and tell us the terminal reports that people are getting. The person is a parent who doesn't get any terminal reports. I've got another child in a secondary school who lives with me and also doesn't get any reports. And he tells me that the teachers don't even come to school. As I'll say not a top tier school, but a second tier school, which is a good school anyway. But I say the teachers don't come for more than 1 or 2 hours a day, and they're just gallivanting all over the place, and there's no proper supervision, no checks and balances. And so he doesn't even know how they're going to finish their education. So yes, the free educational system, which NDC also started under Mahama, and which our constitution actually guarantees that Ghana should have free compulsory basic universal education, F-cube, which was what I and others in the Ministry of Education and successor ministers have all promoted. But somebody came with a good slogan, free SHS, which caught on and which they tried to implement against lots of advice. The manner in which they were implementing it, the first year they started it. I said, no. People said, oh, why don't you wait, put your systems together? Because when I was the Minister of Education, I called a National Education Forum at the International Conference Center to hear what everybody would say. After 2 days, we sat at the International Conference Center with 1,000 stakeholders in education. Parents were there, trade unions, business people, banks, whatever. What are the issues in education? I heard all of it. Rawlings came there, he spoke.
That the MPP doesn't
They
listen?
don't want to hear anything. They don't, until it's their slogan.
Okay, but let me ask you this. I mean, you've touched on a lot of negatives. Are there any positives that the MPP has brought to bear when it comes to education?
No,
how about free SHS, for example?
As I said, the mere idea, which was constitutionally provided, but obviously not as fast accelerated by other previous governments before the MPP came, of offering everybody a so-called free education, is a good thing if it actually is free. But if they say free education, and then when you actually get a list of the things that your ward or yourself, your parent, should bring to the school, there are 20 items that we never had as a requirement for a school. So basically, the government simply replaced what they should be paying for and asked parents to pay for it from the back door. So bring a cutlass, bring a broom, bring spoons, bring this, bring that, buckets, all that as part of your coming to a boarding school to prevent the government from providing those items which were normally provided by public sector institutions.
Have you seen in recent times, ahead of the elections, some of the campaign videos, messages of the MPP? You see some students talking about, oh, I wouldn't have been able to attend senior high school without this free SHS policy.
Yes.
I guess for them, that is something I haven't experienced it, but they have. And definitely you would have relations who would benefit from such a
and I think that's good.
A program as well.
And that part of the free education is good.
There are positives, right?
Of course. Very few things that are negative don't have any positives.
And the NDC will continue with free SHS.
President Mahama has pledged that several times. There are also advertisements from the campaign team repeating that pledge. Because President Mahama himself was part of the process of introducing free senior high school education during his term. But it wasn't branded, it wasn't politicized and so forth. So it wasn't well known. So he has nothing against it fundamentally. After all, most Northerners, because he comes from the northern region, already enjoyed a certain kind of free education in the public schools under Kwame Nkrumah. From Kwame Nkrumah's time, if you came from the northern region, you already enjoyed free education. So free education as a concept is not new, but extending it to the whole of Ghana under the MPP is something that they brought out, which in principle is good, but in the implementation has been muddied and murky. And if they only take advice, they'll do a lot better than they're doing now. So just not willing to take advice. And that, if you see people like Professor Adai Mensah, who will tell you that they wrote all kinds of memos, they didn't get far from. There are many education specialists who regret that advice they give to this government has not really been taken. So often it's not about Ghanaians not being able to solve our problems. We are very good at solving our problems. We are very capable of solving our problems. And being an ambassador to the United States opened my eyes to the fact that even outside this country, we are the most highly sought after human being to be given a visa to go to the United States. You know, Ghana, for many, many years, always gets more visa, green card, lottery beneficiaries than even Nigeria, which has 4 or 5 times our population size, just because Ghanaians have proven themselves to be hardworking, to be loyal, to be obedient, to be whatever, non-criminal, controversial when they leave the country. So our human resource material is fantastic. Ghanaians qualified to enter any academic institution in the world. You go to Harvard, you find them. You go to Oxford, you find them. Stanford, whatever institution you're talking about. So the brain material is solid. And the ethical part is potentially good, but people, the worst part of our population often get into certain political positions and do very bad things. At the procurement agency, for example.
Let's go to Parliament. And in recent times, there's been quite a tussle in respect of Article 97, 1G and H of the Constitution, a tussle that was not a tussle in 2020, but became a tussle now because of the parliamentary numbers, partly.
Yes.
And Afenyo Markin went to court. That is the leader of the MPP.
In Parliament,
And
yes.
in Parliament, yes. And in fact, the entire domino effect culminating in the Speaker of Parliament, when Parliament did sit, adjourning the House, sine die, indefinitely, till there is a ruling from the Apex Court. Having observed politics over the decades, what do you make of that situation and the role of the Supreme Court, the role of Parliament, and maybe even the role of the executive in all this?
I think there are two quotations on that subject which are very relevant. The first actually, which became public, was the Minister for National Security, Kandapa, going to address judges and telling them, look, I don't want to misquote him, but basically the effect of his comment was that sometimes the decisions you make, even for them as a ruling government, can become embarrassing in the sense that we know we may have appointed you, but there are ways in which you can take decisions that are not so obvious and overt and even may harm the national security. So it wasn't the Minister for Justice saying this. It wasn't the Minister for the Economy that was saying it. Minister for National Security. That means there are certain decisions that the judiciary sometimes take based on their own criteria, but which have negative potential effects for the whole country. That was Minister of National Security. The latest one, I think, was from former Attorney Chief Justice Sofa Akufo, who said, again, I don't want to misquote her, but it was like there are some decisions that are being made by her former colleagues, which she herself has difficulty in appreciating, because I guess the way in which the decisions are being made, I wish I could quote her accurately, but it was a critical comment about the same judicial system that she was the leader of, meaning that, of course, all organizations go through various, trials and tribulations. They go through changes of various kinds. But at this time, the kind of, decisions were 7-0, 9-0, 5-0, and they think they are playing a soccer match and they are doing very well because they've just beaten Nigeria 5-0. No, this is the court of Ghana. And 7-0, 9-0 decision by any court is not impressive to most jurists. So in the United States, when the Supreme Court sits, they come with very narrow differences. Sometimes, 7-5, sometimes 7-2. I won't give you the numbers, but some people don't always agree. I mean, the idea that you have all been selected based on your individual knowledge and skill sets, and so we don't expect you to match, lock and stop and barrel as if you are robots. But I'm saying that, unfortunately, the current legal system, which has been critiqued by both the National Security Minister and by former Chief Justice, suggests that Nyoman Koyi in the world of governance. Now, when you in the media have also...
Are you then suggesting the judiciary is compromised?
No. When you, the media, have asked survey questions such as what percentage of Ghanaians believe that the judiciary is, use the word corrupt, for example, or when Azim Anasa Azuri or some other person who did the video on judicial corruption, I don't want to get the wrong person's name. Anas, I think it was Anas' case. Yeah, so people were looking for goats and sheep openly on camera. If you bring me a sheep or a goat, I'll give you justice. My kind of justice. I'll release
but you cannot say that is a reflection of the entirety of the judicial system.
Nothing is a reflection of the entirety.
And these people they had their day in court, so to speak. They had their day for the judicial system to address those issues, and some of them were
found not to have committed any offenses.
And others were.
The others were. So, like everything else, small boys in a classroom, somebody whistled, a teacher who whistled in a classroom, nobody wants to show up. He may whip all the students if he wants, just because of one person or two people who were doing the whistling. So, collective punishment, yes, we don't agree, accept that. So, if you are in Gaza, you don't appreciate the fact that all of you Gazarians are being mowed down because maybe 100 people went and misbehaved somewhere. But those are parts of the realities of life. Not all Ukrainians are bad people, but they are fighting a war against Russia for whatever anybody had done, which Putin disagrees with. So the judiciary as an institution is what they are asking about. And I'm saying that currently, for a number of reasons, they don't have the right, a good image. As a former image maker, I'll be happy to give them all kinds of advice.
If you could give the Chief Justice, Gertrude Tokonu,
yes,
one piece of advice today,
yes,
what would it be?
Just follow the law. I mean, don't allow, I don't know who calls who, because I know politicians call justices, yes, routinely. Chiefs call justices. Many people call justices. But the justices actually, from my understanding, are supposed to even try to exclude themselves from certain social. So if you invite a justice to even a wedding or some other social event, some of them will not come, and they will give a reason that they don't want to be seen in certain places mingling with normal people just because they don't want their reputations to be compromised. So they are being given certain privileges. They retire on their salaries. And so that idea alone should be comforting to you, that no matter what you do, you retire on your salary. Some people don't retire on any salary. I worked for 50 years. I don't have a pension because of decisions I took myself. But they have a pension. They are retired on their salaries. That should give you enough comfort to simply obey the law. I mean, do the right thing. But the point is that law, from what I understand, has potential for numerous interpretations. The same article, the same sentence. That's why lawyers go to court. That's why judges get it right and get it wrong sometimes. So you can get a case that at a magistrate court, a decision went this way. It goes to a high court, it goes the other way. It goes to appeal court, it goes another way. It goes to a Supreme Court, it goes to the same case.
So I get the point you're making.
Yes.
With the sort of tussle.
Yes, sir.
Separation of powers calls for a balance of power.
Very true.
Right now it appears there's shoulder rubbing and ego tripping and who is more powerful and you can't do this and if you do this I'll do that.
But let's roll back.
You could call it tit for tat. The point is where we are now, does it serve our democratic purpose, our democratic credentials, and the decision that the Speaker took in terms of also adjourning Parliament indefinitely? Do you feel that was the best step that could have been taken?
Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I think he got a whole lot of advice from a whole lot of people. And I think some of you were even broadcasting it before the decision that this is what many experts in law are suggesting could be some kind of a peacemaking approach. Because anything else he did would have been seen as a stepping over the judiciary or not respecting the decision of the judges. So this
was a sort of neutral.
Yeah, it's like position. Abstaining in a vote at the United Nations. Just
well, his lawyers have put in a request to quash that ruling of
Very
the court.
Good. So that's
let's conclude the conversation on the John Dramani Mahama campaign, and now we can go back to the Ashanti region where you were born, Kumasi, yes, to be specific.
Correct.
How healthy is the John Dramani Mahama campaign, and the Ashanti region, like I mentioned?
Yes.
Depending on how many votes the MPP garners there, it's going to either spell doom
Correct.
or gloom
Correct.
for your party.
Yes.
How are you handling that region? And do you think you can make any inroads there?
Well, I'm sure we can make inroads there. Again, I can't speak for the party because that's not what this interview was about. I'm not a party officer. I used to be a vice chairman of the party. I used to be the spokesman of the party.
So you can speak as an observer?
No. So I'm coming to that, but I'm saying that I used to be director of communications. What Sami Jamfi is doing now is something I used to do more than 20 years ago. So I know what it is to misspeak just because you're being interviewed and say something which is not party position. But I'm saying the party obviously intends and would like to get more than the 30% that it doesn't get in the votes generally in Ashanti region. And there are many, many ideas that are being talked about. But of course, I can also reveal those that will be actually implemented during the electioneering period. But in the past, the two things that the MPP have used somewhat effectively against us in Ashanti region and in many other parts of the country has been intimidation of our supporters by either physical violence or threats of physical violence, which this government also has implemented, especially in the Volta region, against the SAL, the four communities that were not even given the right to vote, in the Volta region. So that habit of one, intimidation. Then secondly, money. So money will be pumped heavily by the government of the day I'm not a prophet, but I will be when the evidence comes out later. Just because the Bank of Ghana losses that are yet to be demonstrably proven as to why a whole Bank of Ghana, which has been in business for 70 years, can suddenly have a 50 billion loss. So there are many theories as to...
Some explanations have been given.
Well, there'll be official explanations, and then there'll be unofficial ones. That's why they say there's politics and there's politricks. Now, there's a lot of politricking that is going on now, and that will continue to go on. And in the Ashanti region, we are very concerned about the fact that even how the Electoral Commission and other agencies have mapped out the country so that they have so many more legislators than any other region. I don't want to get the facts wrong, but I think there are 40 or so in Ashanti region alone. And of course, Greater Accra also has a large number of legislators. So it's supposed to be dependent on population size and any number of factors. But that gives them a lot of weight, which some may say may be somewhat outsized with regards to the size of the country, physical size, geographical size, and then the size of the overall Ghana population.
Also counts, right?
Yeah,
apart from the Greater Accra region, sure. I believe the next is the
populace. Yes, so population counts, but I'm saying that the way the demarcations of parliamentary seats have been done over the years, they happen to have a little few more than somebody else would have suggested that they deserve. Nevertheless, we are concerned about Ashanti region. And Ashanti region is not only for Ashantis. I'm a Fanti born in Ashanti region. There are Voltarians born in Ashanti region. There are Northerners born in Ashanti region or living there, married to Ashantis and all that. So we look at all those demographic permutations, and we have strategies to do the best we can with the various communities which are sympathetic to NDC.
Okay.
Because there are communities that are very, very sympathetic to NDC, but there are others that obviously just will take anybody as long as the MPP. They will tell you that even if you put a dog in MPP colors, they'll vote for it, etc.
But same could be said of your side. In Asawase and other places, some too would say that no matter what you do in some of these Zango communities, they will vote NDC. So it's
I'm saying
a two-way
knowing
street.
all that, we have to take remedial measures on the day of voting and the day before, in particular, in terms of how we populate the place, how we allow election monitors or some of our lawyers, for example, who have volunteered to play roles in the whole election system, and accountants who also, because they work with numbers, have also volunteered to play a number of roles which they didn't play in the past. So mobilizing a lot of professionals who can play roles that other small young boys who are not very vigilant and who can be given 500 cedis or 1,000 cedis and say, get out of this place and forget about your polling agency work, are among the things that I believe we will be doing to make sure that we protect our ballot boxes and we also prevent, voter fraud, which has occurred in many cases. I mean, the recent revelations from the register of the electoral register, which revealed, according to our spokespeople, that more than 200,000 people had been deliberately pushed aside.
Some of those questions have been addressed by the EC, haven't they?
By saying what? How did people?
There was even the IPAC meeting and some progress made.
The computers that have been lost as well.
Some progress made. I mean, those machines. That is another issue.
Where are they?
But there has been talk about some of, is it Pusiga and other places, and some of what happened there. All I'm saying is the Electoral Commission itself has admitted that it's not a perfect institution.
It will not be.
But
it's being made more imperfect.
To remedy
you make an institution that is not so perfect, more imperfect, when you pack it deliberately with people who you know in advance, who are on television, who have videotapes of them, who your national security officers will tell you, this man, we know him to be NPP, and this is evidence against him. You are pointing again to the position.
I mean, just to conclude on this point, your final words, but feed into your final words. I interacted with a pastor today. I found it interesting. Okay. Sometimes spirituality in politics and who gets what, when, and how.
I used to be a chief executive of a church. Action Chapel, you didn't know that?
No, that I don't.
Among the many things I've done.
How much do you believe in spirituality and politics? Some people, it's like spirituality and football or those things. But this person was telling me that, he saw something and there was a confirmation of it in a certain by-election, and that Of course, I can't mention whatever he said,
Sure.
but that he saw certain percentages and it's going to mean this and that for.
I don't believe in any of the so-called prophets
Do you
prophet about numbers. You see,
right?
If they have prophetic capacity.
First off, let me pose my question. So, do you believe the NDC is going to win this election? The MPP wants to win it, and by what estimation in terms of percentages do you think the NDC
But
will win?
the statistical evidence is out.
It is.
And I'll tell you from global analytics alone, Mr.
Musa Dankwa.
Musa Dankwa, who nobody questions, at least not that to my knowledge.
Well, the MPP does question
his credibility. No, when it favors them, they have no question his projections in the past. Nevertheless, those are his projections. And under his projections, President Mama consistently, for more than 1 year, has had over 50%, usually 51, 52% of the vote. And Mr. Baubian has not gotten more than 40% consistently from the research. And the facts are obvious. Where do voters of Alan Chamate come from? Where would they come from? They are former MPP guys who followed him in the yellow suits. And then Mr. Bediako, who may have support in many regions of Ghana, but his core support is also Ashanti anyway. So if the two of them plus other small parties have about 10% of the vote consistently, then the election results is out. But if we want the one certified by the Electoral Commission, they are waiting for them to see whether they'll try and massage these figures, which we all know, and bring us something fraudulent.
So you are suspicious of the EC?
We just told you, somebody has packed the EC with known MPP apparatchiks. What do you expect? They will be trying hard, using all kinds of methodologies, because NDC will be asleep, or we are not as smart as they are, or they know more, trigonometry or whatever. We are wide awake. Whatever method we are wide awake.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Spio Garbrah, for joining the conversation today. It's been interesting.
I hope so.
Catching up with you, and of course, we wish you the very best on your
by God's grace
business journey and
grace.
your political journey as well. And that has been the conversation with Spio Garbrah, a man of many things, a politician, a businessman, and a member of the National Democratic Congress. This has been AM Exclusive with me, Benjamin Akapo. Thank you for watching.